I love Brazil. I've been coming here now off and on for 10, 15 years. And it's an amazingly beautiful country with gifts of a huge variety. And for me, this is probably the most political trip that I've ever made to Brazil. And what keeps coming up for me in this particular trip is how much the history of Brazil, particularly around race, is similar to the history of the US. And how much the country is facing a crisis because of the failure to acknowledge that history in much the same way that the US is currently facing a crisis for the failure to acknowledge its history of racism and the way it continues to affect our society. So I'm glad to have the opportunity to have this conversation with you all, especially tonight on the eve of the Olympics, because it's amazing to me to think that within a couple of weeks, you're going to have hundreds of thousands of people traveling to Rio, millions of more people watching Rio on TV, celebrating events where many of the star players will be Black athletes, coming from the US, coming from Africa, coming from Latin America, and it is in many ways a celebration of Black athleticism in a country that's engaged in the extermination of Black people. And it's ironic to me that those two things could be happening simultaneously and not really acknowledged. So to have the opportunity to have this conversation and hopefully increase public awareness of the reality of Black genocide in Brazil and the way that it's a continuation of a policy of racial oppression that was part of the founding of this country in the same way that it was the founding of the country that I come from, the United States.